I've enjoyed plenty of games worthy of being labeled as experiences in my time, but very few have ever impacted me on a personal level after completing it. Few have ever made me think or feel something genuine about myself or about the society and life we live in. I understand that games are here to entertain us above all else, but every now and then a game comes along that strips us of everything we know and gives our minds a clean slate, transforming us into a blank canvas waiting to be painted with a plethora of shades and colors. I didn't think The Last of Us could be a game like that, since no game before it has ever made me think or feel something different before. I had my doubts, and then I actually played it. I present to you Naughty Dog's latest project, The Last of Us, the swan song of the PlayStation 3 as we prepare for the next generation. Not only does this game stand as a testament to all the achievements and technological breakthroughs the PS3 has reached in its lifetime, The Last of Us also breaks tradition. It may look like just another zombie apocalypse game on the surface, but it's so much more. The game plays just fine, to be sure. If you're looking for well-polished and intuitive mechanics, tight control, and pretty graphics, you can't go wrong here. There's nothing wrong with the gameplay or anything. It's good, but that's not what makes this game so great in my eyes or those of the majority who have played it, because we've come to expect a certain level of quality from developers over the years, and especially from Naughty Dog. The Last of Us meets that expected level of quality, but also gives us something more. Something far more valuable than just how it plays. I've always taken the firm stance on the debate about the importance of story in video games, that gameplay always comes before anything else. If the game doesn't play well or isn't enjoyable to immerse yourself in, then who cares about the graphics or story or what have you? But once I experienced the story of The Last of Us, that wall that I was standing high and mighty on just entirely collapsed beneath me. For the first time, I can say with utmost confidence that I believe the most important reason to play this game above all else is for the story, and I'll be happy to explain why I feel this way. Imagine what it would be like to be living by your daily routine one day, then having everything you ever knew, trusted, and loved disappear overnight. That's how the story begins in The Last of Us. Joel, the main character, lost everything once an infectious cordyceps outbreak engulfs and ravages humanity. He lost his daughter Sarah to the savagery of man, and over the course of 20 years he has survived, adapted, and watched as the world deteriorated and basically went to hell. He lost all faith in humanity and hope for the future, and the only thing that became important to him was living to see another day. This is not a typical zombie outbreak either. The terrifying creatures one encounters in this desolate new world are not the undead, but rather human beings mutated into monstrous beasts under the control of a deadly fungal outbreak referred to as the infected. They don't kill and devour because they want to. They do it because the sane, genuine human beings these people used to be aren't in there anymore. All the heart, soul, and consciousness of the infected people is lost forever. All these victims can do now that they've basically become empty vessels of death and fear is ravage, chase, terrify, kill, and devour. Joel and his friend Tess are tasked with escorting 14-year-old Ellie outside a military-dominant quarantine zone in Boston in search of a rebel group known as the Fireflies. The Fireflies stand against the military's brutality towards what's left of civilization and search for a means to restore humanity. But that's all you really know about them. Ellie is a special case because although she has been bitten by an infected, she hasn't turned into one of them in 3 weeks since the incident, meaning that unlike most of the remaining human population, she's immune in a sense. The Fireflies need Ellie in order to possibly find a vaccine for the infection. She's the last hope this corpse of a civilization has for any means of restoration. She's that important. But the game isn't just one big escort mission across the ruins of the once proud United States as it may seem initially, and how it may initially sound. Ellie is far from some helpless cargo. She's passionate, independent, headstrong, capable, and yet she also has her own fears and imperfections just like anyone else, so she's far from generic either. Ellie is a genuine human being, one of the last ones remaining in this apocalyptic hellhole. Don't get me wrong, there are still plenty of people alive, but humanity is pretty much extinct in The Last of Us. Ellie has a side of innocence and curiosity about what the world was like before the infection, because this is the world she has had to grow up in. She will never know what life used to be like before her time, and what is considered history in the course of this game's canon is the life that we are enjoying right now. All the perks and luxuries we have currently through technology and progression, all of our culture and history, Ellie doesn't know about any of that, and learns about it through the artifacts she finds and the places she and Joel explore on this journey through a once prominent society left behind. Yet she looks and acts like she would fit right into our modern society, so it becomes a shame that she exists only in the aftermath of this disaster. Ellie's character and personality are so relatable that she becomes such a realistic and enjoyable character. But what's fascinating to me the most about Ellie is that through her innocently ignorant demeanor, she unconsciously teaches and reminds the devastated and pessimistic people in this universe like Joel what they used to be like and how great life used to be for them before any of this happened to them. This story demonstrates through the character development of its main cast, and most prominently through Joel, that in the 20 years since the infection broke out, people have become bitter, selfish, gritty, paranoid, hostile, reckless, and downright hopeless. Mankind is already dead, and people have already given up. To these people, there is no future. There is only survival. All morals, principles, and logical thinking are dead. Failing to keep one's emotions intact or hesitating to act quickly enough almost always amounts to death. The people who survive are the ones who act without thinking in times of crisis, yet are smart enough to know how to gather enough food and supplies, find shelter, and avoid danger whenever and for however long possible. If people can't adapt to the new rules of this unforgiving society, they die. It's as simple as that. One of the biggest threats in this game, even greater than the infected, is the opposition of other human survivors. The gangs, the pillagers, the hunters, the cannibals, and the savages. People have de-evolved back into primitive animals, so to speak. The Last of Us just depicts a hopeless, desolate world where people have lost everything they cared about, and their losses have released their violent and evil side of their characters. Their families and friends are either infected or dead, their hometowns and almost anywhere they run to are never safe, and every single day brings the uncertainty of life or death. Some people even take their own lives because of the fear and the inevitability of death in this world. The Last of Us isn't about saving the world or making meaningful moral choices. Joel is not some average Joe that becomes an untouchable savior or a demigod upon picking up a gun. His purpose is to deliver Ellie to the Fireflies and stay alive at all costs. He'll kill plenty of civilians, infected or otherwise, loot plenty of abandoned households, and soak his hands in the blood of the people who try to kill him first. While there are portions where he can potentially sneak by without killing anyone, my point is that in this universe, everywhere you turn and every place you run to is hostile territory. No place is actually safe forever, and the handful of people who don't try to shoot you upon first sight are never there with you for very long. It means that growing attached to anyone or any temporary haven is a suicidal risk. Naughty Dog could not have picked a better title for this game. This really is The Last of Us. The Last of Us as a species and a civilization. In a literal sense, the majority of the population is gone for one reason or another. And in the more meaningful sense, the people that have managed to survive this long are the only ones left carrying all of our integrity and decency, but due to the unfortunate circumstances, the wholesome teachings and morals that we all have are abandoned for the sake of physical survival. The relationship between Joel and Ellie is the central core of the entire story that carries it from beginning to end. How Ellie helps restore Joel's humanity, and how Joel is there to act as a guide and protect Ellie. At first, they were such radically different people from one another, and the thought of them ever working together to survive seemed preposterous. But as time goes by and circumstances change, through all the new developments in the plot, new conflicts, and interactions with the different people they encounter, Joel and Ellie soon find themselves caring for one another more than anyone else, and in need of each other. This really is a journey that they could not have done on their own for a number of reasons, and by the time the 20-hour story does eventually draw to a close, Joel's character has changed to the point where he looks to Ellie as if she were his daughter, and as a result, he makes an important decision, which, for the sake of spoilers, I will not describe what the choice is here, but he would not have done it for anyone else in the world. Again, Ellie isn't helpless. She can take care of herself, but she learns that it's okay for her to trust and rely on Joel for support when she needs it. Joel goes from keeping his guard up at all times, never trusting or caring about anyone but himself, and fighting only for his survival, and he changes to doing courageous feats and putting his own self in danger for the sake of protecting Ellie. There's just something fascinating about watching Joel begin to do things his old self never would have even considered 20 years ago. People may argue that the relationship between Joel and Ellie, or the depiction of the world in this game, isn't the most original, but regardless of whether or not that's actually true, I still think this is one of the most gripping, powerful, and emotionally driven stories I've ever seen in a video game. If telling a good story and provoking emotion are traits that define true art in our culture, then in a world where video games are looked down upon as nothing more than a novelty or a time waster, I believe that The Last of Us is a triumphant exception to the norm. One of the exclusive cases where video games can reach the status of an art form alongside literature, music, film, and visual manifestations of self-expression. The story in The Last of Us makes a statement about society and mankind. It's like a realistic what-if scenario. The fungus that causes the outbreak in this story is actually based off of one that does actually exist. So what if this could happen to us? What if all of this actually did happen? What if the world didn't end and we all didn't die simultaneously in an instant, but we suddenly became a dying species enduring a period of life or death in which nothing mattered anymore except doing what was absolutely necessary to stay alive? I feel that the origins of the fungal outbreak in the story are purposefully kept brief and almost skimmed over and hardly ever explored in order to preserve a sense of mystery. It's not fully explained how or why this apocalypse happened, and the people have given up trying to understand it. It has changed them, whether or not they're aware of that. What if this actually happened though? How would we adapt to it? Would it play out the same way as it does in The Last of Us? Would even more people die? Maybe less? I know this is a video game, but this isn't just a video game. It can make you think about yourself, your life, your society. It's hopefully not a sign of things to come, but the story in The Last of Us, through the characters, the setting, and the possible meaning behind it all, are so incredibly well done. Done in such a way that I personally have never seen or ever thought possible in a video game. I could stand to discuss more in depth about how The Last of Us functions and performs as an actual video game, but it really wouldn't add much to what I'm trying to emphasize here about this game. It plays as a well-polished third-person shooter with stealth elements, real-time weapon crafting, and chunks of exploration sprinkled throughout the otherwise linear path progression. I could praise the immersive sense of urgency and danger this game simulates with the scarcity of ammo and resources and the downright nightmare-inducing encounters with the ravenous infected, but that's all honestly beside the point. In my humble opinion, The Last of Us will be most fondly remembered years from now, not for how it played as a visually stunning third-person shooter, action-adventure, survival horror game, or what have you. Granted, those are the essential components that bring the entire package together as a great game, but The Last of Us will be remembered for the story it told, for the characters we met and the world that Naughty Dog created for us to explore. A world that feels brand new, yet eerily familiar at the same time. Video games can always be addictive, well-polished, and enjoyable. There's plenty of that here, but The Last of Us is a demonstration. It's solid proof that games can have a great story. This was a perfect end for the PlayStation 3's generation, because we don't get games that excel like this too often. Only now, I hope that this won't be the last of them.